What happens when life takes everything from you? Your father to suicide, your body through tragedy, and your mind through self-destruction. Today's guest has been there, but he didn't just survive, he rebuilt. And he's showing others how to do the same. This is a story of pain, healing, and the radical accountability that turns despair into strength. Leon Christiansen is the founder of Rural Masterminds, a movement dedicated to reshaping the way we think, heal, and lead in our communities. After losing his father and surviving a devastating helicopter crash, Leon spiraled into a path of self destruction. But through accountability, healing, and raw authenticity, he has turned his story into a beacon of hope for others. His message is clear. If we don't heal our wounds, we bleed on the people around us. Leon, welcome to Attention is the Currency.
Thanks, mate. That was really awesome. Cheers. Thanks for
Very
being here.
welcome. Yeah, we're happy. We're very happy to have you on the show, and we're looking forward to diving deep into your story and finding out more, and also finding out about the tools and strategies that you use for your clients. And Leon, take us back to the beginning. What did life look like after your dad's passing, and how did that shape you?
Yeah, so when I was 20 odd, that's what actually took place out of an accident from my dad actually had a horse accident causing him brain injury. And it was about 5 years later, so from 15 to 20, where he took things into his own hands and couldn't reshape his identity and loss of self, and then unfortunately took his life. So that was a destructive an event that destroyed our whole family really and our like trajectory of where we were heading as a family business, as you know, as a tight-knit family as well. So for me personally, I probably was in so much pain that I didn't understand at all. I just ended up in an unconscious self-destruction. I didn't realize or take any attempts at my own life. I did feel at times like I would rather not be here. And then through my journey of accidents, I ended up with so much pain that I did actually want to take my life. And that was one choice, or find some different ways in this human journey to uncover things that have lasting and permanent change. And I've done a lot of different things for that, but now I help other people in that space because, especially for males, I feel that identity loss is the biggest crippling, where we get so lost that we don't know who we are, and the loss of our identity is really an ego death where we actually feel like we're likening it to death. So
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, yeah, life throws us curveballs, and yeah, I definitely think as men we take things on very hard, and but we're also going to touch on your helicopter crash was another massive turning point. Can you describe that experience and how that impacted you?
I will go into that one specifically. However, there is an enormous story that we won't get to all of the pieces today, but that was actually my fourth crash in aviation, and I have 12 in total with cars and motor vehicles. So it was pretty enormous. A year prior to that helicopter crash, I'd actually hit a power line in another one and ruptured my bowel and broke ribs, sternum. I was in intensive care for a while and still didn't get my lessons. So I jumped back in and was bulletproof, even though I was still healing. Uh, and we'd been on a helicopter cattle mustering job. So we'd been up in central Queensland and doing a few days work with helicopters. And we're on the way home later in the afternoon from a job where things took a turn, and without going into full depth, but the helicopter ended up with a simulated engine failure. So the pilot in command ended up getting the helicopter into a state where it couldn't be recovered from its rotor stall, basically, where we were falling quite fast from about 400 foot. In that time, I actually was the lower experienced pilot and thought that this pilot would correct the stall that we were in, and it would be okay, and everything would be fine. And I didn't realize how quick though this was unfolding into something quite traumatic. And within probably 20 seconds, we'd actually fallen to a place that wasn't recoverable. And next thing, we were hitting the dirt at a huge rate of speed. And at that moment, there was a lot of things going through my mind that was nightmarish, impossible, couldn't really be happening, to, you know, am I going to die in this one? Because my legs hit the top of the helicopter roof, and I didn't feel like they were even attached to me anymore. So that was pretty surreal. And then when we come to a standstill, there was still a stall horn screaming in the background, yet also an eerie silence, if that makes sense. And I was trapped, and I felt like it was pretty common for the helicopters to catch fire. So I thought, I've kind of made it, but I don't know if I'll still make it. Um, it felt like quite a long time until I was pulled out the front of the helicopter by the other pilot, who was only had a scratch on him. And where I got dragged out the front to was where I stayed for hours until uh, medical helicopter came to rescue us. And I didn't really know what was wrong. I just thought that I'd obviously winded myself pretty bad because I couldn't move my body or my torso. And there was definitely a bit of panic, but I tried to remain calm and got a call through to my wife at the time, who was 5 months pregnant. And I remember thinking, this could be the moment. I may not see my future child or hold them or anything. So again, I tried to stay calm for her sake and say to meet me in hospital, and it'll just be a precautionary and everything will be fine. But internally, I was panicking because I knew something wasn't fine.
Yeah. Wow. They must name a ward after you in the hospital for your frequent
Yes,
visits. That's
certainly did
that's
some fundraising for the helicopter service as well. But yeah, I did end up rescued and taken to surgery again. But anyway, there was a big multitude of different hospitals and different services and systems. And days later, before I did get surgery, and I had cracked or fractured three vertebrae in my spine. The spinal cord was being pressed, and it was a millimeter or two off being severed. And that was the realization for me that I had just about put myself in a wheelchair. And yeah, there was a lot of hard moments through the next several years actually, because I couldn't use my body the same, and I was a mess for quite a long time. And I got told to just go on benefits and just take pills, and I'm pretty stubborn. So I decided throughout the process that that was not going to serve me, especially longer term. And that it was now my challenge to figure out how to reshape myself, because my dad didn't get that chance and he got loaded on chemical drugs and it didn't serve him. So it was now the journey of unfolding. And honestly, it took 10 years to really peel it all back, and it still continues. But these days I'm upright and healthy and doing yoga and moving my body and um, teaching seminars and workshops and coaching and helping people. So that's sort of the sum of it. But yeah, of course, there's a lot more. But that particular event was a real kick, where it was like you haven't dealt with all your stuff, so now you have to, because you can't even move, you can't run.
well, that was you touched a little bit on the because our next question was around it. Looking back, what were the warning signs that you headed into a self-destructive?
Yeah, they were everywhere now that I look back. And even the intuition I had to not sort of fly with this guy, I didn't listen, I didn't trust that. And my lack of being able to understand or listen to my intuition has been quite embarrassing when I think about it, because yeah, I just didn't have the inner wisdom or the self-belief to understand that that was actually a real feeling, and the ego wanted to push past and get stuff done for approval or for wanting to be impatient and prove myself. So that was a big warning sign that I look back now and didn't listen to. And probably the other things was just that I didn't understand that there was another way, actually. Yeah, I actually didn't understand that there was this calm and peaceful way and this healing that was so pivotal in many ways and modalities we won't go into, but things that could really reset your nervous system, reframe your mind and your perception, physically, that you could heal things that they say you can't, for example. Um, so there's a lot to it. And on this human experience we're in, we've definitely been brainwashed and conditioned to believe that we must rely on external and medical and systems and pharmaceuticals, which is why we're in a big problem with our world, I feel.
Yeah, definitely. And was there a moment or realization that made you decide enough was enough?
It was actually the point where I got to that I couldn't do it anymore, and I was in so much pain that I had to choose death, suicide, or rebuild. That was my options. Now I aim to promote that it shouldn't have to get to that, and we should try to treat ourselves like a prestige car that we maintain. So for me, I'd probably run from my emotions for so long, and I had held so much grief and anger about my dad's loss and all the unfairness that I'd received. And it was now time to reshape that. And the pivotal moments was just um, that I wasn't going to find a way through this, even with, chemical and prescription, because I knew for a fact from my earlier experiences that that was going to numb me and keep me detained. And I'm very big on freedom. Uh, that's why I flew, because I've always seeked to have freedom and experiences, and I still do, and adventure. So to be caged or to be numbed, even drugs back in the past, I never tried any drugs apart from a bit of marijuana, and I did not like the feeling of being so stunned, basically.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I don't do anything. I don't even drink alcohol anymore.
That's good. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
How did accountability to yourself and others become part of sort of that turnaround as well?
I wish I could say that it was like a overnight thing.
Yeah, of course.
However, it just was more lessons that kept hitting me between the eyes to give me that self accountability. Years later, I then went through a pretty painful divorce. Not that it was nasty, but definitely just that it's another loss of identity and reshaping of your perception and identity of who you were. So that particular event was probably one of my hardest because I have two beautiful children. And in that experience, I knew already that if I didn't take accountability for myself being part of that problem, that I wouldn't be able to have a good relationship moving forward with my kids or my ex-partner. And now we have a pretty good relationship because I still take accountability for that event and for our relationship moving forward, even though it looks different, because I'll still always have love and respect for her as their mum, and I still want to raise really beautiful humans. And so that accountability for me, because I understand how much of an effect we have on our children, especially with the, monkey see, monkey do, that children mirror us from their first 7 years. I kind of was very aware that there was something bigger than just me to do this for, and then also to have lasting and sustainable relationships with others, because at the core of what my passion and value is, it's to have strong and good relationships. Like, I'm a connector and I love connecting with others. So that's important to me, and to help share people have better relationships. That's what everything is. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And what does healing actually look like in practice beyond the buzzwords?
Oh man, that's such a good question because it's of course really diverse and it's really individual. Like many things will work for some that don't for others and stuff. But it's probably it's probably a lot to do for me personally has been with that self-accountability piece, digging into the subconscious so we can shift or change things that have been our normal and and then finding gratitude, even though that's a bit of a buzzword, but really deep gratitude for the experiences, even if they're tough, and for all the good ones. And then really finding who you are in authenticity. So, in finding what's going to be your want and desires to move forward, but for you and not for someone else, not because someone else wants you to be a plumber or a mechanic or dad was. And one of the blessings of my dad leaving the planet, even though he was open in this space, was that I didn't have to prove anything to him or do a certain career or role for him anymore. I still had to let go of that identity of who I was, but yeah, I've never felt caged to specifically be one type of role, and that's a big thing for everybody is that they place their role or title as their last name. They associate and fixate with their role in this career type thing, and then that can unfold and change, and then they don't know who they are.
Or finding that true fulfillment. I know that
Yeah,
we're always doing what others expect us to do.
yeah, that's right. And this thing about authenticity and even attention, which I love about your podcast, is that we live in, like, of course, such an overloaded, explosive information world that isn't quite that healthy because there's just too much that we can't handle. So our brains are like a computer system that's permanently on overload, or our fight and flight system's always on. So to come back to presence and maybe be maybe for me, I don't even know how to do this yet fully, but maybe to be more in person and in community rather than online, because of course it's handy and of course we can connect from different distances, but I still want to get back to a lot more stuff that's actually in person. 8% of our communication's words. The rest is energetic and tonality and expression and of course, the screen's the next best thing, but in person's irreplaceable.
Well, I feel like we're getting back to that now because since 2020, when all the things that happened there, it put a lot of people off from going out.
Yeah,
But thankfully, we're starting to see in-person events again, and
yeah.
more speaking in person and on stages. But tell us about the birth of Rural Masterminds. What is it, and why did you create it?
Thanks, Daniel. It came out of several years I was just coaching as my name, or another name called Mind Renovate, and it didn't really feel big enough because I zoom out a lot. Excuse me. And I run some men's retreats, and I ran a retreat. Like most of the time, the guys will really band together and become strong French friends. And I ran one where that continued. All of them continued to contact each other and become really powerful wisdom and insights for each other. And I was kind of like, this is bigger than me. And I think that we need to create this environment that's not existent for rural Australia, and just in general, we have a big alcohol problem, massive, more than people are putting any awareness on. So I wanted an environment where it's okay if you want to have a beer, but it's certainly not encouraged at our events or anything like that, so that you feel safe if you want to grow, if you want to have a different perspective, if you want to not drink, and you don't get pulled down by anyone else, especially another man, because there's still a lot of that nonsense that goes on in any of the space where people are doing different modalities. There's a lot of men that are scared and they're actually calling names and calling it gay and calling it weak and all this stuff, which is not helpful. And I'm starting to blow up about that because I say to those guys and I call them out, imagine if you called somebody gay or whatever
Yeah.
week for doing that, and then you find out the next day that they'd killed themselves.
Yeah.
Would you be able to cope with that? It's disgusting. It's not needed and it needs to stop just because of their own insecurities and they need to be challenged on it. And I need everybody to get that mentality. So Rural Masterminds is actually an environment, not really anything other than that, but it is a not-for-profit, but an environment where our strict guidelines are only that we don't judge and pull others down. And it's even okay to question and challenge each other and all that, but it's a sharing or education platform where we have some events and we have a group every Monday and things like that. And we aim to continue that into a framework of trainings and tools for people who want to you know, self-discover. I don't like the mental health word.
Yeah.
Self-discover and grow.
I imagine that, well, I've only been out rural a few times, but I know that there's a whole lot of other challenges out there. And if your community is a bit smaller and you're feeling disconnected from your communities, it does create additional challenges.
It's huge, mate, because the communities are so tight knit with everyone knows everyone. So if you don't fit in, let's say, so to speak, because you're not drinking or because you've had a few mindset challenges, or sometimes even if you go through a divorce or anything, people can really ostracize and exclude you. And that's what we want to change because I think anybody, male or female, that really starts to dig into their self-discovery and has some self-reflections and accountability, I think they're heroes. They change the ripple goes out to all their family and their loved ones. And people that are doing that, Daniel, as you know, are changing our world slowly,
Yeah.
one at a time.
They definitely are. Well, people are starting to wake up to things, and it's also
Sure.
it brings me to my next question because it is around the rural masterminds. And how do you bring the hope and practical tools to the people who are isolated in rural communities?
That's a really good question, my friend. I have probably been challenged with that, and now I'm starting to gain, I feel a little bit of traction from other organizations and government agencies, counsellors, psychologists that want to be involved with sharing this message. And I'm happy to travel all over the place. I actually am a pilot, so I'm happy if someone else can cover the cost for me to fly around. But yeah, again, more in-person workshops, some online. Every Monday at 6, we have a men's chat at 6 a.m. And I've always been very available for somebody that's gone through a fair bit of pain on the phone or on Zoom. And yeah, and just to continue to have more actual in-person workshops, but then actual trainings. And we're building a set of tools, a bit like an NLP framework that we can actually share with the rural communities so that it betters their life.
That's perfect. And we're going to move back to resilience and accountability again. And what's the hardest truth you had to accept about yourself to grow?
Geez, that's a good question. Um, Probably for me to be okay with being wrong, to be okay with the things that I had done wrong, to deal with the shame and guilt or failure. That was a big one, really big. I failed in a lot of things with, marriage, business, income. As a dad, I failed at times, but rebuilt a lot of that. I failed with my health, looking after myself, prioritizing myself, failed to be nice to others sometimes. So probably that accepting that you have and always done things wrong, right, but also not staying in full uh, negativity towards yourself because we really need to understand that we'll never be perfect, that we're just here, have experiences and to learn from it. So that was probably the hardest thing. Anyone that's going to be self-accountable, it's not fun to deal with your shadows or your negativity. So that's probably the hardest part.
And we all have it as well. It's
Yeah.
I think it's by you talking about this so openly, it's people listening could be going through, or they'll go through something similar. They could go through something completely different that's really big for them. And
Yeah.
this is where I know you sort of touched on it then, but I think it's a really good question to ask. What do you tell someone who feels completely stuck in grief, guilt, or anger?
Well, firstly, I validate and resonate, and then I say this is temporary. Every single thing in our life, including life, is temporary. It's choice to stay there. It's a choice to suffer. Pain is a guarantee, but suffering meaning means that we place a lens on it that it's wrong when it's not right or wrong. It's an experience in life. So creating hope is my biggest desire because without hope, it feels like we can't ever move forward because the cloud's so big. So I just aim to create hope and then, as I say, validate and resonate and just share that this is temporary and with the right tools, we can shift this and it can change. So each different process, each different emotion as well. There is different tools and structures and processes. Like grief has its own process, and there's no time frame. So it's feeling and being okay with that. And then each thing like shame and anger and stuff, there's ways to actually process it so we get through it.
That's perfect. And what's the vision for Rural Masterminds going forward? Is there something exciting coming up that people should watch out for?
Oh man, that's a good question. Thank you. There's so much cool stuff. For me, it's the trainings we're going to create. That's what's really present for me now. And then more guest speaking. So last week I spoke in front of 100 and I want to deepen that so that I can get this message out there. And the message really is this simple, is that there is another way. If you're suicidal or in a really dark place, because let's face it, 7 or 8 people a day are actually taking their life successfully every single day. So the message is that there's another way, and we want to like reduce and create elimination of some of those statistics. Uh, so yeah, more. I don't like the word awareness. There's plenty of that out there, but more action. So more solution orientated tools because it's one thing to raise awareness and everyone's doing that, but they're doing it with beers and barbecues and Kit Kats. And we want to do it with solutions and environments where you don't need to get pissed. Um, and then to just grow the network so it becomes like a movement in the rural Australia where this is the go-to spot for anything around reshaping depression, reshaping just maintaining a better and more positive relationship with yourself and your loved ones too.
Yeah, that's perfect. We're excited for that. And how can people support your mission or get involved?
Thank you, buddy. Ruralmasterminds.org, most of it's on there. And of course, Insta and Facebook. So if you want to follow any of it, but we are a not-for-profit. We can actually receive some donations, but our programs are paid, and we aim to put everything back to rural Australia and help people, especially in crisis. As it grows, I definitely see that we're going to have other coaches or guides or whatever that will help others. And yeah, just get along to the programs and events that we run. Like we have a men's retreat at the end of October up in Yeppoon, Central Queensland area and it's full of good, deep tools, but it's also a bit of banter and a bit of fun and a bit of activities. And again, as I mentioned earlier, some of those guys form lifelong best mate friendships. So that's empowering to me, especially where it's somebody that then is safe enough. You can call them up if you're going through a tough time. And that's already happening. So I'm very proud of that. I have some guys that have been in that stuff for about 3 and 4 years, and they've become really close with each other and keep in touch every week. And I've become really good friends with them too. So it's a bonus for me. And that is something I'll touch on when on that sort of question just before about what was the hardest to change, and it was isolation, because if you grow and if you change who you are, it can be very easy to become isolated from others. So that's also what Rural Masterminds is a network of people that are like-minded, and you don't have to feel so isolated. So yeah, pretty cool.
I think this is a really powerful message to get out there because more people in rural uh, Australia need to know that there is support and there's tools and resources for them and events they can go to. But also the rest of the country, they don't. Rural Australia does so much for everyone else because you're out there
Yeah,
producing the food uh,
100%.
people don't think about that the day to day when they're in the
No.
outer layers of Australia.
That's really a really good point, and it'd be nice through this process to just be able to educate people how important our farmers are. And I do have an aim to help farmers and rural people have a stronger mindset so that they can do their job and support people. And the flow on is that we have a stronger nation. It's pretty empowering. That's for sure.
Well, it's definitely not always easy because you go through all sorts of challenges that people wake up in a city apartment and have no idea about what could go on just to put their vegetables on the plate and everything.
Yeah, mate, that's right. And there is extra challenges being in rural, as well as the not only all the weather, but the debt levels and the financial side of it just keeps getting harder and harder too. So that's not easy, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a whole different challenges people just aren't unaware of. But excited for you sharing the message. And we come to our signature question, Leon. And if attention is the currency, what should people stop wasting it on, and what should they start investing it in?
Well, we definitely have a very digital world, and therefore actually a bit too much lack of connection in real time, and that's not going away. So I think if we could just focus presently on what we want to create within our relationships, and that just means time without those devices and time that's not online, like structuring it a bit better so that you're not always available online. And yeah, presence of not only others' company, I actually feel like presence within your own company, and no distractions, or it can be doing something you love, whether it's tinkering around the shed or the garden. Do that without the device, and shut down from everything and have time in silence and stillness. Like, that's probably been one of my hardest things that I faced, was stillness retreats and being alone, not needing to be validated by others. So that's a really important thing for people to face and do, I feel.
That's
Mm,
perfect. Yeah, but yeah, more present time, and
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
that's
kids are the biggest mirror of that. When you're not present with them, they act out. And if you sit on the floor and act in their best interest because you're actually available, it's chalk and cheese. You can tell the difference. So they're a perfect mirror.
that's great. Raising the leaders of tomorrow as well as
Yeah.
the leaders of today.
Yeah.
Leon Christiansen, story reminds us that despair doesn't have to be the end of the road. With accountability, healing, and connection, you can rebuild from the darkest places. His work with Rural Masterminds is proof that our tragedy can come transformation, and that healing yourself is one of the most powerful ways to heal the world around you. To learn more, visit ruralmasterminds.org. We'll put the link in the description as well. And follow Rural Masterminds on Facebook, Instagram. And remember, your attention is your greatest currency. Spend it wisely and invest it where it makes life worth living. Thank you, Leon, and we'll see you all in the next episode.
Thanks. You're a legend. Appreciate that. Thanks for sharing my message.